So I went to Lowe's to pick up some new decking board for my deck, and guess what? They didn't have the decking boards that I wanted, so instead of leaving, I bought a Pergola Kit. This video is going to outline me setting up and installing my Allen & Roth DIY Pergola Kit. And guess what? The directions say that you can get this done in 50 minutes. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get right into the installation. It's not a traditional unboxing, but here it is all boxed up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all this stuff out on the ground, and then we're going to start assembling it. It does come with a set of directions, and I noticed my first step was actually putting together the legs on the outside. I do like how everything is labeled, so just pay attention as you go. I highly recommend getting a helper and removing all of the plastic wrappings. As you're unboxing, make sure you check the inside of your post because that's where some of the extra legs and arms will be. All of our parts are out and accounted for, and now it's time to assemble. You can see that I put a carpet underneath. I just did that so I wouldn't lose any of the pieces. There are quite a few attachments and such to go here. So first step, taking A1 and A2 and attaches them to the feet. Now these are only labeled A1 or A2, so it's pretty simple. Let's do that now. So we're gonna slide this cover on top first. And then these pieces go inside just like this on each side. Now there's only a screw part on the top and the bottom. There's not one on the sides, even though there's a place. And then later on, I can actually stake these down or screw it down. But let me get the screws real fast to fasten it here. What I have here is the part AA, which is the M6 by 15 millimeter bolt, and then the EE washer. So what I'm gonna do is I'll stick this in the hole and just tighten it in there to hold it in place. At the end of tightening this down, they do have a little cap that you can put on there just for cover. They did provide an included wrench, but I think a socket set would do just as fine as long as you don't over tighten them. When you finish tightening down your bolts, you can put on your cap.
No.
Mm-hmm. Very good. These things now, remember, just slide down and cover up your fasteners. Now I'm going to go do that to the other three legs and move on to the next step. Step one is complete. I did notice that this one has a pretty good sized dent right there. I didn't notice that when we unboxed it, and we've been pretty careful with them. I will reach out to the company and I will post down in the description anything I hear about that. But let's move on to the next step. Step two is pretty easy. What we're going to do is we're going to take E1 and we're going to slide it right into C1. And what you're going to do is just make sure that these screws line up. You're going to have one here, and one here. I'm sorry, screw holes I meant. Now I'm going to take the bolt, which is the same bolt from step one, the M6 by 15, and then a plastic washer. I'm putting the metal to the metal, so the plastic's on the inside. We're going to screw it in right here, and that completes step two after you put your cap on. Now that we have both C1s attached to both E1s, we're now going to take F1. Don't you just love how these things are all labeled? Now F1 actually expands to go around this piece, so make sure you open it up and slide it. We're not bolting anything in right here. We're just lining it up with this screw hole because we're going to end up putting C2 on the other side. So make sure you put your F1s in and move on to the next step. As we're continuing on with step 3 into 4, we're attaching C2 over top of E1, which is attached to C1. I know it's all confusing, and of course F1's right here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put one of those bolt combinations together right here with the plastic washer, and that's going to secure us in this long piece. And then we're going to come back. Our next step is to secure in our brace right here. Now we attach this all together. Same bolt combination. You have your AA, this is the plastic washer, and then of course I'll top it off with a cap. I've switched over to a screw gun. If you notice, I've had this turned down to a really light level just so I don't destroy anything or pinch it, but it's a lot easier than using the wrench. Now we're going to take the rod labeled J, hook it into C2. Actually, we're hooking this into C1 as well. I'm going to show you this. So this gets screwed down right here. I'm not going to tighten it down just yet because I'm going to slide this whole piece down to where we were working before. And you see how this other hole that is still there, we're going to put another piece in that same exact spot. Let's see, I have it ready here. And so now once I get these in, I'll tighten it down. There are a total of 4 of these rods that need to be put in, and it just goes into the C1, C2 combination using the leftover holes. With that step complete, you should have C1 and C2 connected, and then J1 attach them as the curtain bar, just like that. The next step is a very similar combination, just like the previous steps. Right now I have E2 instead of E1, and I'm going to be using B1, which is right here. We're just going to slide this in, and we're going to line up the holes till we get to right here. So now what we're going to do, though, instead of last time we only put one screw in or one bolt in, we're actually going to put a bolt here and here, just because we're not going to be setting up later for the rod like we did before. So get your bolts all set up. Screw them in. Once they're screwed in, you can put the cap on and then move on to the next step. But there are 2 sets of these, so make sure you do both of them. Once those have been tightened and the cap is on, we can put our F1s on just like before in preparation for B2 to go over top. Now we just slipped B2 over top of E2. It was a little tighter than the other one, but it still fit on just like that. Now I'm going to put my bolts here and tighten this up. Now that B1 and B2 have come together to make this arc, we're taking A1 and A2 and hooking them together here with this next piece. This is where it's going to get a little difficult because we have to, let me see if I can zoom in there. We have to line up this piece down the hole here and screw it in down here. They provided an Allen wrench to tighten that in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten in all these and then stand the unit up and start the assembly. This has been by far the most difficult part of the installation, and I absolutely think there could have been a better way. You have to line these pieces up in here and then screw them in. One time, I actually pulled the Allen wrench out and the thing fell down, and the only way to remove it was to take off the bottom foot, so just be careful of that. Also, at times I find that I have to lift up this end to line up one of the holes, and now that I've got them all in there, it's straightening out. But I've been working on this here for about 20 minutes, and I don't actually think this one's in all the way. But take your time here, but this is kind of a interesting, difficult installation. For the most part, up until now, you've been able to do this by yourself, but now we have to have someone hold the other side just so I can screw these parts in, and you got to do this all the way around the entire perimeter. Once these 3 bolts are installed on every arm or foot there, it'll be able to stand by itself. So just make sure you get someone to help you with this part. It's now freestanding by itself, and as you can see here, I have a ratchet just tied around so it doesn't fall over, but for the most part, it's pretty good. Now it's time to put on your support braces, and there are these curved pieces. There are 2 different sizes. This is the G, and there's also a G1. The G goes on the shorter side from here down to the arm, where the G1 goes on the taller side down. I found that it's easier to put the screw here at the top part first, but let's go install all 4 corners. Now to install the braces that go across the top, I have D2 right here, then we have F2. F2 goes on in this direction. It's going to end up covering up this hole as we slide D1 into this. Bring F2 back, and now I'm going to put one of the bolts through here and here. Remember, we're using the plastic washer for these ones and not the metal washers. We get our drill and secure. Now do the same thing with the rest of them, and don't forget to put your caps on. All 7 pieces are assembled. I will say I've had these sitting out in the sun as I've been working on this, and they've gotten really, really hot. So I noticed that some of the pieces going together, man, it was really, really hard. So I had to put them into the shade, and then once they cooled down, they were able to slip in. But when they're really, really hot, they're tough to get together. And I'm talking about the connection pieces here between D1 and D2. Let's go install these on the pergola. When installing the top slats here of the awning, it's important not to put anything in this first one. That's where the canopy is going to tie to, but we're going to start by putting these in. What I do is I have the other end just braced and supported, and so I put this one in part way. I'm going to go to the other side, screw that in, and come back. This is definitely a lot easier if you have 2 people, but it's not impossible by yourself. All the top braces are installed. Now we throw across the canopy. Now we want to install or set up our canopy holding rod. So there's a little push pin here. You push this in, slide it in, watch your fingers. It's got a little effort. There you go. And it popped right in. Now we're going to slide this piece into the actual canopy top, but we're going to put that rod together first. The canopy rod gets fed through the canopy right here. Stick it from one side all the way to the other. Now let's go to the other side. All right, now that we're putting the canopy top on, I'm gonna line this hole here up with this one below and put this screw pin or screw right through it. And then I'm gonna pull the rest of this top overboard and tighten it up on the other end. Almost done. There it is, completely installed and nice sun coverage. Plus, it's pretty sturdy. The kit comes with these stakes that you could put down if you put this on grass. I'm actually going to end up bolting this right to my decking. But that being said, in a couple of weeks I'm replacing these deck boards, so I'll just screw it down now, and then when I have my new decking put in, I'll just screw it back down as well, just to keep it safe. The curtains are self-explanatory. These rings through, and then you hook them on that bar we installed early on. I'll show you that in just a second, but it's just real simple to hook these on. Just hooks up here to this bar. The cool thing is you have a zipper down the middle that you can unzip all the way up to the top, and then it separates into two curtains, which that's pretty cool. So I can just bring this one down here if I want. Therefore I can open up the area. In this video, we're setting up and installing an Allen & Roth DIY pergola kit. And earlier I said it takes about 50 minutes. Well, it took me about 2 hours. That being said, I did the majority of it by myself. So if you're with someone else working, I bet you can do it in half the time. Now, this item is not sold on Amazon, but I will leave you a link to Lowe's if it's something that you're interested in. And you must have a ladder, and I couldn't have done it without my little giant. I will leave a link to that down in the description as well. This is Jeff with Jeff Reviews for You. As always, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a great day. You know what? But before you go, this time of the year we get that green stuff on our houses, right? So I've reviewed two different products. I've reviewed Wet and Forget and 30-second cleaner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to link one of each right up here. And if you haven't seen either of these, I would love it if you would click on these links. And by the magic of the internet, when you click here or here, I'm going to join you at those reviews. So go ahead and click it. They're safe, I promise.